And of course, you still have the endurance in your driving, don't you, Chester?
Our roads and tracks have certainly shrunk, similar to the 3-day world in the last years, but it's still you know, an hour and a half that those horses are out competing. But as I see trends looking forward, I see bringing horse sport to the people, which means finding a way for the endurance-based sports like endurance riding or 3-day eventing or combined driving, finding a way to bring that to parks and cities and things like that. So, and realizing that being able to put on events like this takes sponsors, and to do that, you have to make things that are interesting for spectators to see. And watching horses do, or at least in the driving sport, do you know, miles and miles of roads and tracks, that's not very exciting, where if you were interested in watching that, you'd certainly say, no, I'm going to go watch endurance. That's the sport that's about that. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm seeing, at least in the driving sport, is finding a way to bring our sport more to the masses, how to have a European Championships this summer in a small park in Budapest. They'll figure it out.
Mm. Bearing that in mind, David, you know, we're here to celebrate 25 years of KER. What do you think are the most significant improvements or changes, both positive and negative, that you've seen in eventing over the last 25 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting sport. It was very, very Eurocentric in so many ways, and I think Chester's hit on something, is that the popularity of the London Olympic Games was an amazing part for our sport, I think, and especially at eventing. I mean, yes, it was in England, yes, it was a horse culture, but it was right down in the middle of a city, and it was very accessible to people on a subway, in subways, and wildly popular that way. You know, the concern with any of us that deal with speed is that when things that happen at speed, when it goes wrong, it's big. You know, and that's the same thing on a bicycle. It's the same thing in skiing. It's the same thing with people love it in NASCAR, but they can build a cage around the driver. And so the situation of, because we're dealing with speed sports, and we're with an equine, our relationship with the public and what the public wants to see and what as a spectator wants to see is something that we always have to have in the front forepart of our minds. And it's very, very easy for us to be very happy with what we're doing because we all deal with horse culture. But as soon as you sell a ticket, you're inviting an opinion. And as Chester says, and in the end, you know, you have a spectator are now going to have an effect on how your sport does. It's the same thing with all sports. Baseball, football, the spectator has an effect on that. And so we have to be very mindful, and I think we can argue our points. I think we put our points forward in a way that everybody can understand. But we have to not be defensive and very open about what we do, why we do it. I think one of the big things that's really changed in the last few years is that, you know, when we talk about 6,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago, where the horse was, you know, for farming or industry or war, transportation, you know, now and the horses went down very much in the 50s and 60s. Now they're back, and they're back as a sport horse. Right. With that, we treat the horses as athletes now. I think that has been a huge bonus from a nutritional point of view, from a veterinary point of view, medical point of view, from a sports point of view, from a society point of view. The treating the horse as an athlete has been a complete change, I think, in the last 20 years.
John, it would seem that endurance then might have the most challenges. Where do you see the sport of endurance going in the next 5 years, perhaps?
Oh, where do we see it going? I don't know. We've made such huge changes in veterinary regulation. That's where it's come from in the past 25 years. I mean, actually it began 60 years ago at the Tevis Cup when it first became realized that if this discipline and if this practice was going to come into the modern age, it was going to have to develop very, very stringent veterinary regulation systems to meet our modern expectations and ethics about how we manage our athletes. And so we've had to really be progressive in this sport about how to administrate them. And then it's only become more challenging as the sport has become a higher and higher profile. and I think we've done a wonderful job about meeting that. I mean, if you come to see the level of a process that has been developed for checking these horses through through veterinary control points and endurance rides now, it's really kind of amazing to see how very effective they have become. And it's actually become models that are being shared back to other disciplines again, you know, to technologies and bits and pieces of what we've developed there have kind of been adapted elsewhere. And I hope that we can continue to be that kind of vanguard of how do you regulate and ensure humane treatment and still get good science out of it, and good sport and good science, because endurance riding is really both at the same time. It's a sport and a scientific test at the same time.